Have you ever noticed how some people always seem to get what they want? They walk into a room and suddenly the conversation bends their way. They ask for something and people just give in. It looks effortless, almost magical. But here's the truth. It isn't magic, it's psychology. And when you understand the darker, hidden levers of human behavior, you start to realize that influence isn't about being the loudest, the smartest, or even the strongest. It's about knowing how the human mind really works and using it. In this video, I'm going to show you 7 dark psychology hacks that can tilt situations in your favor. And I want to make something crystal clear before we start. These aren't tricks to turn you into a manipulative villain. These are tools. Tools that can be used for good or for harm. Like fire, it can burn down a house, or it can keep you alive on a freezing night. How you use these hacks is up to you. But one thing's certain, once you learn them, you'll never look at human interaction the same way again. So let's dive in. Hack 1, the power of silence. Picture this. You're in a job interview. You've just been asked what kind of salary you're expecting. You give your number, and the interviewer looks back at you. Now imagine, you say nothing. You don't rush to explain yourself. You don't nervously laugh. You just let the silence hang in the air. What happens? Here's the psychology. Silence makes people uncomfortable. The human brain hates empty space in a conversation. It feels awkward, heavy, almost unbearable. And most people, will do almost anything to break that silence. They'll talk, they'll explain, they'll negotiate against themselves, they'll reveal information they didn't plan to. That's the power of silence. It's not passive, it's active. It's like holding a mirror up to someone else's mind and letting them pour themselves out. There's a famous negotiation technique called the flinch and pause. Here's how it works. Let's say someone makes you an offer. You slightly react, just a subtle flinch, a small hesitation. Then you say nothing. Almost always they scramble to justify their offer, sweeten the deal, or lower the price. They can't stand the silence, so they fill it in a way that benefits you. Think about the last time you were in a conversation where the other person just stayed quiet after you said something. Didn't it make you want to keep talking? To explain more than you planned to? That's not an accident. That's psychology. Now here's a story. A friend of mine was buying a car. The dealer gave him a price and said, "This is the lowest we can go." My friend didn't argue. He didn't say a word. He just sat there, nodding slowly, silent. 30 seconds passed. The dealer, visibly uncomfortable, suddenly added, "But let me check with my manager. We might be able to take another $1,500 off." My friend got the deal. Why? Not because he argued better. Not because he had special skills. Because he knew the power of silence. But let me warn you, this hack requires self-control. Most people panic when the silence grows. They want to jump in. Don't. Sit with the discomfort. Let the other person squirm. If you can master silence, you can make others reveal their hand without ever saying a word. So next time you're in a negotiation, a serious conversation, or even a casual debate, try this. Talk less, pause more, and let the silence do the heavy lifting. Hack 2, the illusion of choice. Now let's move on to the second hack, the illusion of choice. Here's something you need to understand about the human brain. We crave freedom. We hate being forced into something. But at the same time, we feel safer when our choices are narrowed down. Too many options? We get paralyzed. Too few? We resist. The sweet spot is when we feel like we're in control, even if we're not. That's where the illusion of choice comes in. Instead of asking someone to do exactly what you want, you give them 2 or 3 options. Options that all lead to the outcome you prefer. It's like designing a maze where every path leads to the same destination. For example, let's say you're a parent and you want your kid to eat vegetables. If you say, "Eat your broccoli," you'll probably face resistance. But if you say, "Do you want broccoli or carrots tonight?" Suddenly they feel like they're making the decision. But either way, they're eating vegetables. This works in business too. A salesperson might say, "Would you like the basic package or the premium package?" Notice what's missing? The option of saying no. By framing the choice between A and B, they guide you toward a yes without ever making you feel forced. Here's another real-world example. Imagine you're trying to get a friend to hang out. Instead of saying, "Do you want to hang out?" which leaves the door wide open for no, you say, "Do you want to grab coffee or go for a walk?" You've created the illusion of choice, and your friend is much more likely to pick one. Psychologically, this works because humans want to protect their sense of autonomy. We want to feel like we're in control of our lives. When you give someone limited choices, you're respecting that need for autonomy, while still nudging them exactly where you want them. Let me share a powerful story. In a famous psychology study, researchers went door to door asking people to put up an ugly sign in their front yard that said, "Drive carefully." Almost everyone said no. But here's the twist. When the researchers first asked people a week earlier if they would display a small sticker on their window about safe driving, most agreed. Then when they returned to ask about the giant ugly sign, those same people said yes at a much higher rate. Why? Because their brain felt they had already chosen the path of being a safe driver. The illusion of choice had already been planted. The lesson here? When you want someone to agree with you, don't trap them with a single yes or no question. Frame the options, let them feel free, and watch how easily they walk into the decision you wanted all along. Hack 3, mirror their world. All right, let's talk about the third hack, mirroring. If you've ever felt an instant connection with someone, almost like you've known them forever, there's a good chance mirroring was involved. People like people who are like them. It's hardwired. Our brains are equipped with what scientists call mirror neurons, cells that activate both when we do something and when we see someone else do it. That's why yawns are contagious. That's why laughter spreads in a room. That's why we unconsciously pick up accents when we travel. Mirroring is the art of using this to your advantage. When you subtly mirror someone's body language, tone of voice, and even their choice of words, you create a subconscious bond. Their brain says, "This person is like me. I trust them." Here's how it looks in action. Imagine you're in a meeting. The person across from you leans back in their chair and crosses their arms. A few moments later, you subtly do the same. Not instantly, not like a copycat, but with a delay so it feels natural. Or maybe they lean in and lower their voice. You do too. Without even realizing it, they feel synced with you. They feel understood. Salespeople use this constantly. If a customer talks fast, they speed up. If the customer slows down, they slow down. If the customer uses certain phrases like, "That makes sense," they echo those words back later. It creates an invisible thread of familiarity. But mirroring isn't just physical, it's emotional too. If someone is excited, match their energy. If someone is sad, lower your tone, soften your words. When you mirror someone's emotional state, they feel deeply seen. And nothing builds influence faster than making someone feel seen. Here's a story. A woman once told me about a job interview she went to. She noticed the interviewer kept using the phrase "team player." So when she described her own strengths, she made sure to repeat that phrase naturally. "I've always been a team player." Guess what? She got the job. Why? Because she mirrored the interviewer's language, reinforcing the exact value he cared about. But let me warn you, mirroring only works if it's subtle. If you mimic someone too directly, they'll sense it and feel manipulated. Think of it more like dancing. You're following their rhythm, not copying every move. So next time you want to build rapport, whether it's on a date, in a negotiation, or meeting someone new, mirror their world, their body, their words, their emotions. When you do it right, they won't even know why they feel so connected to you. They'll just feel it. Hack 4. Use scarcity. Let me start with a question. Why do people line up for hours outside Apple stores whenever a new iPhone comes out? Do they really need the new phone on day one? Or why does something as simple as "only 3 left in stock" on Amazon make us slam that buy button faster than we expected? The answer is simple: scarcity. Human beings are wired to crave what's rare. If something feels limited, exclusive, or hard to get, we assign it more value in our minds. It's not rational, it's emotional. Scarcity flips a switch in the survival part of our brain. Because thousands of years ago, when food or resources were scarce, grabbing them quickly could mean the difference between life and death. That wiring hasn't gone away. It's just been repurposed in modern life. Marketers know this better than anyone. Think about those limited edition sneakers that sell out in seconds, or concert tickets that vanish within minutes. The product itself hasn't changed. It's the same shoe, the same show, but the fact that it's rare makes it feel priceless. Now let's bring this into everyday life. Have you ever noticed that when you give your time, attention, or energy too freely, people start to take it for granted? But the moment you pull back, suddenly you become more valuable. Why? Scarcity. Your attention became rare, and rare feels special. Here's a story that shows this beautifully. A friend of mine was dating someone who never really appreciated him. He was always available, texting back instantly, canceling his own plans to see them, always saying yes. And guess what? The other person started treating him as an option, not a priority. Then one day he stopped. He became less available. He focused on his own life. Suddenly, the other person was the one chasing him, asking, "Where have you been? Why aren't you replying?" The difference wasn't him. It was the scarcity of his attention. This hack works in professional settings too. If you make yourself too available at work, always saying yes, always picking up the slack, people stop valuing your contributions. But if you protect your time, if you make certain meetings or projects something people have to earn your attention for, suddenly your presence carries more weight. You're not just another employee, you're someone whose involvement is valuable. But here's the twist. Scarcity only works when it's genuine. If you fake scarcity, like pretending to be busy when you're not, people will sense it. The key is to truly value your own time and energy. So when you give it, it feels rare and meaningful. Let me give you a psychological experiment that proves this. In the 1970s, researchers ran what's now known as the cookie jar experiment. They gave participants 2 jars of cookies. One jar had 10 cookies, the other had just 2. Even though the cookies were identical, participants consistently rated the cookies from the smaller jar as more valuable, more desirable, even tastier. Why? Scarcity. This is why luxury brands thrive on limited releases. Why exclusive clubs feel magnetic. Why people want what they can't have. Scarcity doesn't just raise value, it creates urgency. It tells the brain, act now or you'll miss out forever. So how do you use this in your own life? In relationships. Don't always be available. Make your time something people earn. In business, frame your offer as limited. Limited spots, limited time, limited supply. In persuasion, position your ideas or opportunities as rare chances, not endless options. Because when people feel something slipping away, they don't think logically, they act. Hack 5, the because trigger. Now the 5th hack might seem almost too simple to be true, but it's backed by one of the most famous psychology experiments ever conducted. It's called the because trigger. Here's the study. In the 1970s, Harvard researcher Ellen Langer tested how people reacted when someone tried to cut in line at a busy photocopy machine. When the person said, "Excuse me, may I cut in line?" About 60% of people let them through. Not bad. But when they added just one word, the compliance rate shot up to over 90%. What was the magic word? Because. When the person said, "Excuse me, may I cut in line because I'm in a hurry?" Boom, almost everyone agreed. But here's the craziest part. Even when the reason was meaningless, like "May I cut in line because I need to make some copies?" people still agreed at almost the same rate. Think about that. The word because alone was enough to trigger compliance, even when the reason was obvious nonsense. Why does this work? Because our brains are wired to look for reasons. When someone gives us a because, even a flimsy one, it creates a sense of justification. It short-circuits deeper thinking. Our brain hears because and goes, "Oh, there's a reason. This must make sense." Now let's imagine this in real life. You want your coworker to help you with a task. Instead of saying, "Can you help me with this report?" you say, "Can you help me with this report because I want to make sure we deliver it perfectly to the boss?" That because makes it sound purposeful, important. You're not just asking, you're giving them a reason to say yes. Or maybe you're trying to convince your friend to join you at the gym. Instead of "come to the gym with me," you say, "Come to the gym with me because it'll be more fun to go together." That tiny shift makes your request more compelling. Let's take it one step further. Think about advertising. You'll see phrases like, buy now because supplies are running out, or act today because this deal won't last. The word because transforms the offer from a pushy demand into something with an explanation. And the brain loves explanations, even shallow ones. Now here's where this gets really interesting. When you combine hack 4, scarcity, with hack 5, because, you create a powerhouse of persuasion. For example, you should sign up today because there are only a few spots left. See how that works? Scarcity creates urgency. Because gives it justification. The two together are nearly irresistible. But let's step back for a moment. Does this mean people are just robots, blindly obeying the word because? Not exactly. The effect works best in low-stakes situations, like waiting in line or making small requests. But even in bigger decisions, giving someone a clear reason massively increases your chances of success. Think about it. How often do you personally resist doing something simply because no one explained why? Kids are masters at this. They constantly ask why, and when they don't get an answer, they resist. Adults aren't that different. We want reasons. We crave them. And the person who provides them, even simple ones, wins influence. Let me give you a story to illustrate. A man I know once negotiated a raise by using the because trigger. Instead of saying, "I deserve a raise," he said, "I believe I deserve a raise because I've taken on 3 new projects this quarter, and they've all been successful." The boss agreed, not just because of the logic, but because the framing felt complete. It wasn't just a demand, it was a justified request. So here's the takeaway. Whenever you're asking, persuading, or negotiating, don't just make the request. Add a because. Even if the reason feels small, the effect it has on the human brain is massive. Notice something here? These two hacks, scarcity and because, play on very different parts of the mind. Scarcity tugs at primal emotion, the fear of loss. Because appeals to logic, or at least the illusion of it. One makes us act fast, the other makes us feel justified. But together they're a lethal combination. They explain why entire industries thrive on creating urgency and giving reasons, even flimsy ones. They explain why people line up, why they say yes, why they comply. And when you, in your own life, learn to harness both, you stop being the person who gets swept up by these forces, and you start being the one who uses them. Hack 6, label their identity. Here's the truth. People will go to extreme lengths to stay consistent with who they believe they are. Our identity is like our internal compass. We don't just act, we act in ways that match our self-image. And if someone gently nudges that image, we unconsciously shape our behavior to fit it. This is why Hack 6 is so powerful. Labeling identity. Instead of asking people to change their behavior directly, you frame it as something that aligns with the kind of person they already see themselves as, or want to see themselves as. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 signs at a park. One says, "Please don't litter." The other says, "Please don't be a litterer." Which one works better? Studies show the second one. Why? Because it ties the behavior to identity. Nobody wants to be a litterer. That feels shameful. So they adjust their behavior to protect their self-image. Here's another example. Let's say you want a child to read more. Instead of saying, "Please read your book," you say, "You're such a reader. You love books." Suddenly, the act of reading isn't a chore. It's part of who they are. And children, like adults, want to act consistently with their identity. This shows up in politics, too. In one experiment, researchers asked people, "Will you vote in tomorrow's election?" A decent number said yes. But when they asked, "Will you be a voter tomorrow?" the compliance rate shot up. Because being a voter isn't just an action, it's an identity. And people want to live up to that. Let's make it personal. Imagine you're at work and you want a teammate to take ownership of a project. You could say, "Can you handle this?" Or you could say, "You've always been the kind of person who gets things done. Can I count on you for this?" Which one do you think they'll respond to better? Exactly, the second one. Because it connects the request to their identity as a responsible, capable person. It's not about the task, it's about who they are. This works in relationships too. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," you could say, "You've always been such a good listener, but lately I feel unheard." That small shift frames them as the kind of person they want to be, a good listener. And people feel an unconscious drive to live up to that label. But here's a warning. This hack is powerful, but it has to be authentic. If you try to slap on a label that doesn't fit, people will resist. The key is to notice what identity they already value, then affirm it and align your request with it. Think about it. When someone tells you, "You're such a kind person," don't you feel a pull to act kind in the future? When someone says, "You're a natural leader," doesn't that spark a desire to prove them right? That's the psychology at play. In short, label their identity and you'll shape their behavior without ever telling them what to do. Hack 7. Plant the seed of expectation. Now let's move to the 7th and final hack. Planting expectations. Humans are deeply suggestible creatures. When someone we trust tells us what we're going to feel, think, or do, our brain often follows through, sometimes without us realizing it. It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is the psychology of expectation, and when used wisely, it's one of the most subtle yet effective forms of influence. Here's a simple example. Imagine a teacher tells a student before a test, "I know you're going to do great. You're really prepared for this." That expectation lodges itself in the student's mind. They walk into the test with more confidence. And guess what? They perform better. On the flip side, if the teacher said, "This test is really hard. You'll probably struggle," that expectation could cause anxiety, leading to worse performance. Same student, same knowledge, different expectation. This happens in medicine too. It's called the placebo effect. Patients given sugar pills but told they're powerful drugs often report real improvements in health. Why? Because their brain expected healing and the body followed. That's the power of expectation. Now let's look at how you can use this in daily life. Imagine you're presenting an idea at work. Instead of walking in nervously and saying, "I hope you like this," you plant the expectation. "I think you'll really appreciate this idea. It's going to make things run smoother for everyone." Before you've even explained, you've primed their brain to respond positively. Or let's say you're on a date. Instead of saying, "I hope this is fun," you say, "I have a feeling tonight's going to be really fun." You've set the tone, and chances are the night will follow that path, because the expectation was planted. Here's a story. A motivational speaker once told me that before he walked on stage, he would always tell his audience, "You're going to love what I'm about to share." That simple sentence primed the entire crowd. Instead of asking themselves, "Do I like this?" they leaned in, waiting for the moment they would love it. The expectation shaped their experience. And here's the deeper psychology. When someone tells us what to expect, our brain starts looking for evidence to confirm it. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. So if you say, "You're going to enjoy this," the brain scans for reasons to agree. If you say, "This will be hard," the brain looks for struggles. We find what we're told to expect. Now think about the power of combining hack 6 and hack 7. Imagine telling someone, "You're the kind of person who always sees opportunities, and I know you're going to love this idea." That's identity plus expectation, and together, it's almost impossible to resist. Now let's step back for a moment. We've walked through 7 dark psychology hacks: silence, letting people reveal themselves; illusion of choice, guiding decisions without resistance; mirroring, building instant connection; scarcity, making things feel valuable by making them rare; because giving justification, even shallow ones; labeling identity, shaping behavior through self-image; planting expectation, guiding outcomes before they happen. Each one is powerful, but together they form a toolkit that can change the way you see every interaction. Conversations stop being random. Decisions stop being chaotic. You start to see the invisible strings that pull human behavior. But let me remind you, these aren't toys. They're tools. And like fire, they can either light up the darkness or burn everything down. The real power is not in manipulating people to get what you want. The real power is in understanding these hacks so you're not the one being manipulated. Because here's the hard truth. These tactics are being used on you every single day. In advertisements, in politics, in negotiations, even in relationships. The difference now is you can see them. And once you see the game, you can play it consciously. You can use these hacks to build better connections, to negotiate fairly, to protect yourself, And yes, to get what you want. But hopefully you'll do it with wisdom, with integrity, with the awareness that influence is not about control, it's about choice. So let me leave you with this. The human mind is like a lock. Most people spend their whole lives rattling the handle, hoping the door will open. But when you understand psychology, you don't rattle, you don't beg, you don't force. You take out the key, you slip it into the lock, and the door opens effortlessly. That's what these hacks are. Keys. 7 keys that unlock doors people didn't even realize were locked. Now the question is, what doors will you open? Will you use silence to command respect? Will you use scarcity to protect your value? Will you use identity to lift others up instead of tearing them down? Because at the end of the day, psychology isn't just about getting what you want. It's about becoming someone who understands how humans work and using that knowledge to shape a better world, starting with your own. So tell me, which of these 7 hacks do you see yourself using first? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts. And if this opened your eyes, if it made you see the hidden patterns around you, then hit subscribe, because this is just the beginning. The more you learn about the mind, the less you'll ever be fooled again. Remember, those who understand psychology shape the world. Those who don't get shaped by it. Choose which side you'll be on.